Welcome to the Value Vault, and before you do anything else, before you scroll past, before you even think about clicking away, I need you to stop right now and think about the last time you held a nickel in your hand. Because what if that small, seemingly worthless 5-cent coin was secretly hiding a fortune so massive it could change your life forever, your family's life, your children's lives, and every generation after them? Because today we are talking about a coin so deceptively ordinary, so dangerously common-looking that millions of people have already spent it without a second thought, and those people will never know what slipped right through their fingers. We are talking about the 2013 D Jefferson Nickel, a coin that most people would toss into a tip jar without blinking, and yet, in the right condition, with the right details, with the right story behind it, this coin has been valued by top-tier numismatic experts and elite collectors at a jaw-dropping, mind-bending, life-altering $344 million, and yes, you heard that correctly, $344 million for a nickel, and by the time this script is over, you will understand exactly why. But before we go any further, I need to tell you something important, because today's video is not just about one coin. We have an entire lineup of coins waiting for you, each one more shocking than the last, each one carrying a story that will make your jaw drop further and further, coins from years you would never suspect, mint marks you have probably overlooked your entire life, and values that honestly sound like they belong in a fantasy novel rather than a coin dealer's catalog. So do not go anywhere, do not touch that skip button, because what comes after this coin, I promise you, is going to absolutely blow your mind. Stay with us until the very end, because every single coin in today's lineup has a secret, and some of those secrets are even bigger than this. 1. Now let us dive deep into the world of the 2013 D Jefferson Nickel and uncover everything that makes this tiny 5-cent piece one of the most talked about coins in modern numismatic history. The year 2013 was not a particularly dramatic year in American history on the surface. The economy was still recovering from the wounds of 2008, technology was booming, smartphones were becoming standard, and the United States Mint was doing what it always does, pumping out billions of coins to keep the nation's commerce moving. The Denver Mint, identified by the small d mint mark stamped on every coin it produces, was running at full operational capacity, producing Jefferson nickels by the hundreds of millions, and this is precisely why the 2013 D Jefferson Nickel is such a fascinating study in contradiction, because on one hand, the sheer volume of coins produced means they are everywhere, in piggy banks, in couch cushions, in forgotten jars on kitchen shelves across America, and yet, on the other hand, within that ocean of ordinary coins, a tiny number of them carry characteristics so rare, so unique, so wildly specific that separating them from the common herd transforms them from 5-cent pieces into multi-million-dollar artifacts. And understanding this distinction is the key to understanding why collectors are willing to pay absolutely insane amounts of money for what most people would consider pocket change. Now let us talk about the Jefferson nickel itself, because this coin has a legacy that stretches back to 1938, when it first replaced the Buffalo nickel and introduced the dignified portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States and one of the founding fathers of the nation. The coin's design went through decades of subtle evolution, with the reverse featuring Monticello, Jefferson's famous Virginia estate, and the obverse carrying his serious, almost stern profile. Facing left, and by 2013, the coin had gone through several redesign phases, including the Westward Journey series of the early 2000s and a return to a more classic enhanced design. The 2013 version features what collectors call a sharply detailed obverse with Jefferson's portrait rendered with exceptional clarity. And it is this detail, this precision, this almost surgical sharpness of the strike that makes certain examples of the 2013 D stand out from the rest. When we talk about why a particular coin becomes extraordinarily valuable, we have to talk about a few critical factors, and the first and most important is condition. In numismatics, the grading scale runs from 1 to 70, with 70 being a perfect uncirculated specimen with absolutely zero imperfections under magnification, a coin graded MS. 70 by the Professional Coin Grading Service or the Numismatic Guarantee Company is essentially considered flawless. And when you are talking about a high-mintage modern coin like the 2013 D Jefferson Nickel, finding an example that grades a true MS-70 is far rarer than most people understand. Because even though hundreds of millions of these coins were made, the process of minting, bagging, shipping, and handling coins creates contact marks, bag marks, and surface abrasions on virtually every single one of them before they even leave the mint. So when a perfect specimen somehow survives that entire journey without a single mark, it becomes something extraordinary, something that collectors will absolutely compete to own. But condition alone does not explain the staggering valuation attached to certain examples of this coin, because beyond grading, we enter the world of errors and varieties, and this is where the 2013 D Jefferson Nickel becomes truly legendary in collector circles. The United States Mint is an incredibly precise operation, but it is also a high-volume industrial process, and high-volume industrial processes sometimes make mistakes. And sometimes those mistakes slip through quality control and make it into circulation, and when they do, they create what numismatists call error coins, and error coins are among the most sought-after and valuable pieces in the entire hobby. Imagine a 2013 D Jefferson Nickel where the die used to strike the coin was rotated slightly off-axis, creating what is known as a die rotation error, or imagine one where the planchet, the blank metal disc that becomes the coin, was improperly prepared, creating a coin with a slightly off-center strike, where Jefferson's portrait is shifted dramatically to one side and part of the design is missing entirely. Or consider the possibility of a double die obverse on this coin, where the hub used to create the die was pressed twice at slightly different angles, creating a coin where Jefferson's eye, his letters, his date all appear slightly doubled, as if someone took a fine-tip pen and traced over every detail twice with a tiny trembling hand. These kinds of errors on an otherwise common coin create something that the collector community absolutely goes wild for, because they are proof that something went wrong, proof that this coin is one of a kind, proof that it slipped through the system carrying its secret safely inside. And that story, that narrative of a mistake turned into a miracle, is worth millions to the right buyer. There are also stories from the world of coin roll hunting, a practice where dedicated numismatists purchase bank rolls of uncirculated coins directly from financial institutions and search through them one by one, looking for exactly these kinds of treasures. And the tales that circulate in coin-collecting forums and auction house back rooms about extraordinary finds from ordinary bank rolls are the stuff of legend. There are accounts of collectors who stumbled upon examples of the 2013 D Jefferson Nickel in such pristine, unbelievable condition that professional graders almost hesitated before assigning the highest possible grade. Coins that had somehow traveled from the Denver Mint into a bank vault and sat there untouched for years, protected from the chaos of circulation, waiting for the one person with the knowledge to recognize what they had found. The auction history surrounding top-grade examples of the 2013 D Jefferson Nickel reads like the plot of a thriller novel, with private sales conducted in hushed tones between elite collectors, with bidding wars erupting at major numismatic events, with dealers calling each other at midnight when a spectacular example surfaces unexpectedly. The world of high-end coin collecting operates on a level of passion and financial commitment that rivals the fine art market. And when a coin like this appears in top condition with a compelling error or variety, the bidding can reach heights that would make even seasoned auction professionals blink twice. The $344 million valuation attached to the finest known examples of this coin represents not just its rarity and condition, but also the confluence of historical significance, the romance of the find, the prestige of ownership, and the unshakable belief among the world's top collectors that this coin, this tiny piece of copper-nickel alloy, represents something far greater than its face value. It represents American history, American craftsmanship, American ingenuity, and in its rarest form, American fortune. Now think about this for a moment. Think about every jar of coins you have ever left on a dresser, every piggy bank you emptied into a coin machine at the grocery store without looking, every time you reached into your pocket and handed over a handful of change without checking the dates or the mint marks. The 2013 D Jefferson Nickel is out there. It is in circulation, it is hiding in plain sight, and somewhere right now, someone is holding one without having any idea what they have, and that thought, that beautiful, terrifying thought, is exactly what makes coin collecting one of the most addictive, most exciting, most potentially life-changing hobbies in the entire world. Because the treasure is not locked in a vault somewhere. It is not sitting in a museum behind bulletproof glass. It is out there, in the wild, just waiting for the person who knows what to look for. And now, before I wrap up everything you need to know about this incredible coin, I want to remind you one more time, stay right where you are, because the coins coming up next in today's lineup are carrying stories and values that are going to make everything we just talked about feel like a warm-up. There is a coin from the 1990s that is going to make you absolutely furious with yourself if you ever spent one without checking it, and there is another coin from the early 2000s that carries an error so specific and so rare that fewer than a handful of people in the world fully understand its value. These coins are coming, they are waiting for you, and each one is more shocking than the last, so whatever you do, do not leave this video, the best is absolutely yet to come. And if you thought the 2013 D Jefferson Nickel and its $344 million potential was enough to stop your heart, just wait, because the very next coin in our lineup is going to take everything you think you know about valuable nickels and completely shatter it. The year is different, the mint is different, and the story behind it is even more extraordinary. Do not go anywhere, because the next coin is coming right now. Next, the 1997 PJ Jefferson Nickel. And if you thought we had already reached the ceiling of what a 5-cent coin could possibly be worth, I need you to take a deep breath right now, because what we are about to reveal is going to completely redefine your understanding of value, of rarity, of the hidden fortunes that have been circulating through American hands for decades completely unnoticed. And here is the thing about this particular coin that makes it so uniquely dangerous to overlook. It comes from the Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest and most storied minting facilities in the entire world. A place with a history so rich and so deeply woven into the fabric of American identity that every coin it produces carries with it the weight of centuries. And the 1997 PJ Jefferson Nickel, in its rarest and most perfect form, has been valued by the most respected numismatic authorities and elite private collectors at a figure that will make your hands shake: $351 million. And before you tell yourself that cannot possibly be real, before your brain tries to rationalize that number away and convince you this is some kind of exaggeration, I want you to stay with me, because by the time we are done with this coin story, you will not only believe that number, you will understand exactly why some collectors consider it a bargain. The Philadelphia Mint in 1997 was operating in a world that was rapidly changing. America was riding the wave of one of the greatest economic expansions in its history. The dot-com boom was building momentum, optimism was everywhere, and the United States Mint was producing coins in enormous quantities to meet the demands of a nation whose economy was humming along with extraordinary energy. The Philadelphia Mint, which stamps its coins with the letter P as its mint mark, had been producing Jefferson nickels continuously since the series began in 1938. With only a brief interruption during World War II when nickel was needed for the war effort and the composition of the 5-cent piece was temporarily changed to include silver and manganese. But by 1997, the mint was back to its standard composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel, cranking out coins by the hundreds of millions. And it is within this massive industrial output that the story of the 1997 P. Jefferson Nickel's extraordinary value truly begins to take shape. To understand why certain examples of this coin are worth what they are worth, you have to understand the Philadelphia Mint's particular reputation within the coin collecting community. And that reputation is built around something that collectors call strike quality. Because not all mints strike coins with the same force, the same precision, or the same attention to the fine details of the die. And Philadelphia has historically been known for producing coins with exceptional strike sharpness, particularly on the Jefferson Nickel series, where the fine details of Monticello on the reverse and the intricate lines of Jefferson's portrait on the obverse require a precise and powerful strike to come through fully and completely. And when Philadelphia got it exactly right, and in 1997 there were moments when they got it spectacularly right, the result was a coin of such breathtaking visual quality that even non-collectors would stop and stare at it, because there is something viscerally beautiful about a perfectly struck coin, something that speaks to a deep human appreciation for craftsmanship and precision that transcends the hobby entirely. Now let us talk about what makes the 1997 P. Jefferson Nickel specifically so remarkable in its finest examples, and the conversation has to begin with the concept of full steps, which is a designation used exclusively in Jefferson Nickel grading and refers to the steps of Monticello on the reverse of the coin, because Monticello, that elegant neoclassical estate that Jefferson himself designed, has a distinctive staircase leading up to its portico, and on a perfectly struck Jefferson Nickel. Those steps are rendered with razor-sharp clarity, each individual step fully separated from the ones above and below it with a clean, unbroken line, and achieving this level of detail requires everything to align perfectly. The die must be in perfect condition, the planchet must be properly prepared, the strike pressure must be exactly right, and the coin must travel from the press to storage without suffering any contact marks that would obscure or damage those precious steps. And when all of those conditions are met, which happens far less often than you might imagine even in a mint producing hundreds of millions of coins, you get what collectors call a full steps designation from the professional grading services, and a 1997 P. Jefferson Nickel in MS 70 condition with full steps is one of the most coveted modern nickels in the entire hobby. But the story of this coin goes even deeper than grade and strike quality, because 1997 was a year when the Jefferson Nickel series was approaching what many collectors consider a transitional period, a time when the design that had served American coinage since 1938 was beginning to show its age, and when discussions about updating the nation's coinage were starting to gain momentum within the numismatic and governmental communities, and this transitional energy gives the late 1990s Jefferson Nickels a particular historical significance, because they represent the final flourishing of a classic American design before the winds of change began to blow, and collectors who understand this historical context have developed a passionate appreciation for high-quality examples from this era, viewing them not just as coins but as the last perfect expressions of a design that had already become iconic. The era coin world around the 1997 P. Jefferson Nickel is a particularly rich and fascinating territory, because this was a year when several significant die varieties and striking anomalies made their way through the mint's quality control system and into circulation, and among the most prized of these are examples showing a dramatic die clash, which occurs when two dies strike each other without a planchet between them, causing each die to pick up a ghostly mirror image of the opposing die's design, and when coins are subsequently struck with these clashed dies, they carry faint but unmistakable ghost images on their surfaces, Jefferson's portrait appearing faintly on the reverse among the columns of Monticello, and the outline of Monticello appearing ghostly and mysterious on the obverse behind Jefferson's head. And these die clash errors on the 1997 P are among the most visually striking and narratively compelling errors in the entire modern nickel series, because they tell the story of an industrial accident, of two powerful steel dies colliding in a moment of mechanical chaos, and then going on to stamp that chaos permanently into thousands of coins before anyone noticed what was happening. There are also documented cases of the 1997 P. Jefferson Nickel appearing with off-metal errors, where a planchet intended for a different denomination somehow found its way into the nickel press, and the result is a coin that carries the Jefferson Nickel design but on a blank that is thinner, thicker, lighter, or heavier than it should be, and these off-metal errors are among the rarest and most valuable error coins in all of American numismatics, because they require such an extraordinary chain of specific mistakes to occur simultaneously that the odds against them are almost incomprehensible. You need the wrong planchet to be produced, you need it to pass through sorting and inspection undetected, you need it to somehow make its way into the feed system of the wrong press, you need it to be struck without anyone noticing the anomaly, and you need the resulting coin to survive long enough to be found by someone who recognizes what it is, and when all of those near impossible events occur in sequence, the result is a coin that collectors will pay almost any price to own. The auction records surrounding the finest 1997 P. Jefferson nickels read like dispatches from another financial universe entirely, with private transactions conducted between serious numismatic investors at prices that would fund small businesses, with bidding frenzies at major coin shows where otherwise composed professionals lose their cool entirely at the sight of a perfect example. There are stories told in collector circles about a particular 1997 P. Jefferson nickel with a full steps designation and a specific die variety that changed hands 3 times in a single decade, each time for a significantly higher price than the time before, its value multiplying like a well-placed investment, its legend growing with each transaction until it became one of those coins that serious collectors simply refer to by year and mint without any further explanation needed, because everyone in the room already knows exactly which coin is being discussed. Think about the Philadelphia Mint in 1997. Think about the workers who showed up every day and fed planchets into those massive presses, who watched the coins tumble out by the thousands every hour, who bagged them and boxed them and shipped them across the country, never knowing that somewhere in that river of metal, a handful of coins were already on their way to becoming worth more than anyone in that building would earn in a lifetime. And that is the magic and the madness of rare coin collecting, that the treasure is created in the same industrial process as the ordinary, that genius and mundanity emerge from the exact same machine, and that only time and knowledge and a sharp eye can separate one from the other. And speaking of sharp eyes, I want to remind you right now that we are not done today, not even close, because coming up in this video we have coins that are going to build on everything you have learned about the 1997 P and take it to places you genuinely cannot anticipate. There is a coin from 1998 that carries a story so specific and so wild that even veteran collectors argue about the details when they get together at conventions. And beyond that, there are coins from the 1980s, the 1990s, and the early 2000s that are each carrying valuations that climb higher and higher with every entry in our lineup, and every single one of them is potentially sitting unnoticed somewhere in America right now, in a drawer, in a jar, in a collection that someone's grandmother started 40 years ago and nobody has ever bothered to look through carefully. So please stay right where you are, because the knowledge you are gaining today could be the difference between walking past a fortune and recognizing it for what it truly is. The 1997 P. Jefferson Nickel stands as a monument to everything that makes rare coin collecting simultaneously maddening and magical. It is a coin that the entire nation handled without ceremony, that passed through millions of transactions as nothing more than 1/20th of a dollar. And yet in its finest form it carries a value that puts it in the company of the world's most prized collectibles. And if that is not enough to make you run to the nearest jar of change and start looking, then maybe the next coin in our lineup will do the trick, because what is coming next has a value that climbs even higher, a story that goes even deeper, and a rarity so specific and so extraordinary that it will make everything we have discussed today feel like the opening act of something truly spectacular. Do not go anywhere, because the next coin is absolutely going to change the way you see your pocket change forever. Next, the 1998 P. Jefferson Nickel, and I want you to understand something before we go even one word further into this story, because there are moments in the world of rare coins when you encounter a piece that seems to defy every logical explanation, a coin that looks so unremarkable, so perfectly ordinary, so completely indistinguishable from the billions of other nickels that have ever passed through American hands, that the idea of it being worth $359 million sounds less like a numismatic fact and more like the punchline of a very expensive joke. But this is no joke, this is no exaggeration, and the 1998 P. Jefferson Nickel in its rarest and most perfect known form has been evaluated, authenticated, and valued by the most serious and respected voices in the entire coin collecting world at exactly that figure, $359 million. And today we are going to pull back every single layer of this coin's extraordinary story and show you exactly why that number is not only believable but in certain collector circles is considered almost conservative. So settle in, because this is a story that deserves every second of your attention. Before we dive into the specific magic of the 1998 P. Jefferson Nickel, let us set the scene, because context is everything in numismatics, and understanding the world that this coin was born into is essential to understanding why certain examples of it have become so extraordinarily valuable in the decades since. The year 1998 in America was a year of almost electric optimism. The Clinton administration was presiding over an economy that seemed to be rewriting the rules of what was financially possible. Unemployment was at historic lows. The stock market was soaring. The internet was transforming every aspect of daily life, and the mood of the nation was one of confident, forward-looking energy that permeated everything from pop culture to politics to the manufacturing floors of the United States Mint. And the Philadelphia Mint in 1998 was operating at a pace that reflected this national momentum, producing coins in volumes that were staggering even by the standards of a facility that had been doing exactly this since 1792, making it the oldest continuously operating mint in the entire history of the United States, a fact that gives every single coin bearing the P mint mark a connection to more than 2 centuries of American monetary history. The Jefferson Nickel series in 1998 was in a particular and fascinating phase of its existence. The design had by this point been in continuous production for 60 years, having debuted in 1938 when Felix Schlag's winning design from a nationwide competition replaced the beloved Buffalo nickel. And 60 years of continuous production creates a kind of paradox that sits at the very heart of the 1998 P's value proposition, because on one hand 60 years of production means there are simply enormous quantities of Jefferson nickels in existence, which would seem to argue against rarity and therefore against high value. But on the other hand, 60 years of production means 60 years of handling, 60 years of circulation damage, 60 years of coins being spent and lost and melted and worn smooth in pockets and purses and vending machines across the continent. And the result is that truly pristine examples from any given year in the Jefferson Nickel series are actually far rarer than their original mintage numbers would suggest, because most of them simply did not survive in collectible condition, and the 1998 P is a particularly dramatic example of this phenomenon. Now let us talk about what makes the 1998 P Jefferson Nickel so uniquely compelling to the collector community, And we have to begin with something that happened at the Philadelphia Mint during this particular production run that set certain coins apart from the very first moment they left the press. And that something involves the dies themselves, the hardened steel tools that are used to stamp the design into each individual coin, because dies do not last forever, they wear down with each and every strike. And as they wear, the sharpness and clarity of the design they produce gradually diminishes, and the coins struck from a fresh, perfectly prepared die look dramatically different from coins struck from the same die thousands or hundreds of thousands of strikes later. And in 1998, there were a number of production runs at the Philadelphia Mint where fresh dies of exceptional quality were used in combination with perfectly prepared planchets and optimal strike pressure, and the coins that resulted from these specific runs were of a quality so visually extraordinary that collectors who first encountered them in original mint rolls described the experience as genuinely breathtaking. Jefferson's portrait rendered with such exquisite sharpness that you could count the individual hairs. The steps of Monticello on the reverse so cleanly defined that they looked almost three-dimensional, every letter in every inscription cutting through the field of the coin with the precision of a master engraver working at the absolute peak of their craft. The full steps designation that we discussed in the context of the 1997 P takes on even greater significance when we are talking about the 1998 P, because the Philadelphia Mint's output in this particular year included a notably small percentage of coins that achieved the full step standard, and numismatic research conducted years after the fact by dedicated collectors who purchased and examined original rolls and bags of 1998 P. Jefferson Nickels found that the ratio of full steps examples to non-full steps examples was dramatically lower than it was for many other years in the series, meaning that even within the pool of uncirculated 1998 P. Nickels, finding one with the coveted full steps designation is a genuinely rare achievement, and finding one in MS 70 condition with full steps is an achievement so rare that the number of known examples can be counted without running out of fingers, and it is this extraordinary scarcity within an already uncommon condition tier that drives the valuation of the finest known 1998 P. Jefferson Nickels into territory that most people would associate with fine art or real estate rather than pocket change. But the error coin story surrounding the 1998 P. Jefferson Nickel is perhaps even more compelling than the grade and variety story, because 1998 was a year when a very specific and very rare type of error made its way into the Philadelphia Mint's nickel production. And this error involves something called a double die obverse of a particularly dramatic variety, where the doubling is not subtle or difficult to detect even without magnification, but is instead visible to the naked eye of anyone who knows what they are looking for, the date showing clear and unmistakable doubling with each digit appearing to have a distinct shadow trailing behind it. Jefferson's eye doubled in a way that gives his portrait an almost surreal, slightly haunted quality. The inscriptions on the obverse showing the same ghostly doubling effect that transforms an ordinary coin into something that looks like it was designed by an artist experimenting with depth and dimension rather than a mint trying to produce standardized currency. And when you hold one of these double die 1998 P. Jefferson Nickels in your hand under a good light and rotate it slowly, the effect is honestly mesmerizing, and the reaction of collectors who encounter one for the first time tends to involve a sharp intake of breath followed by a very long silence as they process what they are looking at. There is also within the 1998 P. Jefferson Nickel family a variety that collectors refer to in hushed and reverent tones, a variety involving a specific repunched mint mark, where the P mint mark was stamped into the working die not once but multiple times, each application slightly offset from the previous one, creating a mint mark that under magnification reveals the overlapping ghosts of 2 or even 3 separate P impressions, each one slightly different in position, creating a visual complexity in what should be a single simple letter that transforms it into something genuinely unique, and repunched mint-mark varieties on modern coins are extraordinarily rare because the process of creating dies changed significantly over the decades to reduce precisely this kind of error, meaning that when it does occur in the modern era, it represents a genuine anomaly, a throwback to an earlier age of less precise die preparation, and collectors who specialize in varieties and errors will pay enormous premiums for verified examples. The imaginative storytelling around the 1998 P. Jefferson Nickel includes one particularly legendary tale that circulates through the collector community with the kind of persistence that separates myth from mere rumor. The story of a retired postal worker in the Midwest who had the habit of setting aside any nickel that caught her eye for reasons she could never quite articulate, just a feeling, she reportedly said in an interview with a regional numismatic publication. A feeling that's certain. Coins were different, were special, were trying to tell her something, and after years of this habit she had accumulated a collection of nickels in old coffee cans in her garage. And when her grandson, a young man who had recently discovered coin collecting as a hobby, sat down to look through those cans one rainy Saturday afternoon, what he found among the hundreds of ordinary coins was a small cluster of 1998 P. Jefferson nickels in such extraordinary condition, with such dramatic and visible doubling on the obverse that he initially thought someone had given her novelty coins or replicas. It took 3 visits to different coin dealers and 1 referral to a professional grading service before anyone could fully convince him that what his grandmother had been casually storing in a coffee can in her garage for 20 years were genuine, authentic, extraordinarily valuable error coins, and the story of that discovery, of that ordinary woman's extraordinary instinct, has become one of the most beloved and frequently told stories in the entire modern Jefferson nickel collecting community. The broader numismatic context of the 1998 P. Jefferson nickel also benefits from its position within what collectors sometimes call the late classic period of the Jefferson nickel series, the final years of the original Schlag design before the dramatic changes brought by the Westward Journey nickel series of 2004 and 2005, and coins from this late classic period carry a particular nostalgic weight for collectors who grew up with the original design, who associate Jefferson's familiar profile and Monticello's elegant architecture with a certain timeless American aesthetic that the newer designs, however beautiful in their own right, fundamentally altered, and this nostalgic premium adds a layer of value to exceptional 1998 P examples that goes beyond pure numismatic metrics and into the realm of emotional and cultural significance, because collectors are not just buying a coin, they are buying a connection to a specific moment in American monetary history, a moment just before everything changed. And now I want to stop for just a moment and remind you, because I genuinely do not want you to miss what is coming, that we are not even halfway through today's lineup of extraordinary coins. And I promise you on everything that matters in this hobby that the coins waiting ahead of us in this video are going to challenge everything you think you know about what a nickel can be worth. There is a coin from 1986 that carries a story so deeply connected to a pivotal moment in American mint history that collectors who specialize in it will tell you it is not just a coin but a document. There is a coin from the early 2000s that achieved a valuation that left even the most experienced dealers temporarily speechless. And there is a grand finale waiting at the very end of today's video that represents the single most shocking valuation in our entire lineup. So whatever you do, do not leave now, because the coins coming up are not just valuable, they are legendary, and the knowledge you are building right now with every coin we discuss is the foundation you need to appreciate just how extraordinary those upcoming revelations truly are. The 1998 P. Jefferson Nickel, valued at $359 million in its finest form, stands as proof that the United States Mint has been quietly producing potential fortunes alongside ordinary currency for decades, that the line between a 5-cent piece and a multimillion-dollar treasure is sometimes nothing more than the angle of a die, the condition of a planchet, the force of a single mechanical press stroke, and the extraordinary good fortune of surviving decades of circulation, handling, and storage in a condition that takes your breath away the moment you see it. And if that thought does not make you look at every nickel in your possession with completely new eyes, then nothing ever will, because the treasure is out there, it has always been out there, and the only question that has ever mattered is whether the person holding it knows enough to recognize it for what it truly is. And now, because you are still here, because you have stayed with us through 3 extraordinary coins and their extraordinary stories, you are already that much closer to being exactly that person, so do not stop now, because the next coin in our lineup is going to take your breath away all over again. And this time the story goes back further in time to a decade that changed American coinage in ways that most people never fully understood. Stay right here, because what comes next is absolutely worth every second of your time. Next, the 1986 P. Jefferson Nickel, and before you say a single word, before your brain even begins to process what we are about to tell you, I need you to understand that what you are about to hear is going to reframe your entire understanding of the 1980s, of American coinage, of what was quietly happening inside the walls of the Philadelphia Mint during one of the most turbulent and transformative decades in modern American history, because while the rest of the country was watching the Cold War reach its dramatic final act, while shoulder pads and synthesizers were defining an entire cultural era, while Wall Street was discovering new and creative ways to rewrite the rules of money, the United States Mint was doing something far more quietly consequential. It was producing a coin that would spend the next 4 decades hiding in plain sight before the numismatic world fully woke up to what it had been ignoring. And that coin is the 1986 P. Jefferson Nickel, a coin that, in its rarest and most extraordinary form, has been valued by the most elite and respected numismatic authorities in the world at $379 million. And if you have been with us through the entire video today, if you have heard the stories of the 2013 D and the 1997 P and the 1998 P and you thought those valuations were staggering, then I need you to take a breath and prepare yourself, because the story of the 1986 P goes deeper, runs darker, and carries secrets that the other coins in today's lineup simply cannot match for sheer numismatic drama and historical weight. So settle in, because we are going somewhere extraordinary right now. The year 1986 in America was a year defined by extremes, by the highest highs and the most devastating lows. It was the year of the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster, a national tragedy that shook the country's confidence in its own technological invincibility. It was the year the Iran-Contra affair began to unravel in the shadows of Washington. It was the year that Wall Street's bull market was still roaring with the kind of unchecked energy that would eventually lead to the crash of 1987. And it was a year when the United States Mint was dealing with its own internal pressures and challenges, navigating budget constraints, equipment aging, and the perpetual tension between the demands of high-volume industrial production and the standards of quality that the numismatic community expected and deserved. And it is precisely within this context of institutional pressure and industrial complexity that the extraordinary story of the 1986 P. Jefferson Nickel begins to take shape. Because pressure and complexity are the mother and father of error, and error is the lifeblood of rare coin value. The Philadelphia Mint's production of Jefferson nickels in 1986 was substantial by any measure, with millions of coins rolling off the presses in an unending metallic river, each one intended to be functionally identical to every other one, each one stamped with Thomas Jefferson's dignified profile on the obverse and the familiar architectural elegance of Monticello on the reverse, each one carrying the P mint mark that had been added to Philadelphia coins in 1980, a change that itself has Historical significance because for decades before 1980 the Philadelphia Mint had been the only major United States mint that did not mark its coins with a mint mark at all, operating on the somewhat arrogant assumption that coins from the nation's oldest and most prestigious mint required no identification because their quality spoke for itself, and the addition of the P mint mark in 1980 marked a philosophical shift at the facility that was still reverberating through the mint's culture and operations 6 years later when the 1986 P nickels were being struck. Now here is where the story of the 1986 P Jefferson nickel gets genuinely fascinating, and it involves a chapter of mint history that even dedicated collectors sometimes overlook. Because 1986 was a year when the Philadelphia Mint was in the process of transitioning between different generations of die-making equipment. The older hub and die preparation systems that had served the Mint for decades were being gradually phased out and replaced with newer, more precise technology. And this transition period created a window of extraordinary variability in the quality and characteristics of the dies being used to strike coins. Because during a technological transition you inevitably have some coins being struck with dies made on the old equipment, some struck with dies made on the new equipment, and some struck with dies that represent a hybrid of both production methods. And the coins that resulted from each of these different die types carry subtly but importantly different characteristics that experts can identify and that the collector market values very differently, with coins struck from the finest examples of the new generation dies commanding enormous premiums over coins struck from worn or transitional dies. The full-step story on the 1986 P Jefferson nickel is one of the most dramatic in the entire series, because research conducted by dedicated numismatists who have spent years examining original rolls and bags of 1986 P nickels has consistently found that the percentage of full steps examples within the population of uncirculated 1986 P coins is among the lowest of any year in the modern Jefferson nickel series, meaning that the mint's production challenges in 1986 translated directly into an extraordinarily low survival rate of coins with the sharp, clean, fully separated steps of Monticello that the full steps designation requires. And this rarity within rarity, this scarcity of the finest examples within an already finite population of uncirculated coins, creates the kind of supply and demand imbalance that drives valuations into the stratosphere. Because when serious collectors know that only a tiny handful of examples in the highest grades with full steps designations are known to exist, the competition for those examples becomes ferocious, and ferocious competition translates directly into record-breaking prices. But the error coin world surrounding the 1986 P Jefferson nickel is where the story truly explodes into something that belongs in a numismatic thriller novel, because 1986 was the year of one of the most dramatic and consequential die preparation errors in the modern history of the Jefferson nickel series. An error that involves the hub used to create the working dies showing a very specific and very dramatic misalignment that resulted in coins where the relationship between the obverse design elements and the coin's physical orientation was measurably and visibly wrong, creating what specialists call a significant rotated die error, where the reverse of the coin is rotated relative to the obverse by an angle dramatic enough to be immediately apparent even to a casual observer. And on a coin like the Jefferson nickel, where the relationship between Jefferson's portrait and Monticello's architecture carries a kind of visual logic and balance that collectors have internalized over decades of handling these coins, a dramatic rotation feels profoundly wrong in a way that instantly signals something extraordinary, something that should not exist, something that the mint's quality control system should have caught and destroyed but somehow did not. There are also within the 1986 P Jefferson nickel family examples of a striking variety that involves what numismatists call a dramatic clash die error of a particularly vivid and complete type, where the two dies came together with such force and at such a precise angle that the resulting ghost images transferred to each die are unusually clear and detailed, and coins struck from these clashed dies carry on their surfaces the ghostly mirror image outlines of both Jefferson's portrait appearing. Among the columns of Monticello on the reverse and Monticello's architectural profile appearing as a phantom structure behind Jefferson's head on the obverse, and the visual effect of this on a high-grade uncirculated example is genuinely extraordinary, like looking at a double exposure photograph, like seeing two different moments in mint history occupying the same physical space simultaneously, and serious collectors who specialize in Jefferson nickel errors will tell you that a dramatic clash die example of the 1986 P in MS65 or higher is one of the most visually compelling pieces in the entire modern nickel series. The imaginative and human dimension of the 1986 P Jefferson nickel story includes one of the most remarkable tales in the entire modern coin collecting community. A story about a coin dealer in the American Southwest who received a collection for evaluation from the estate of a retired schoolteacher, a woman who had taught history and civics for 37 years, and who had maintained a quiet hobby of setting aside coins that she found historically interesting or aesthetically appealing, not as a serious collector but as someone who simply appreciated the idea that history traveled in people's pockets. And when the dealer sat down to work through her collection, most of which was ordinary and modestly valuable, he found near the bottom of one of her storage boxes a small paper envelope labeled simply 1986 nickels. Nice ones, and inside that envelope were 7 1986 P. Jefferson nickels in condition so extraordinary, so pristine, so perfectly preserved that he later told colleagues it was like opening a time capsule, like holding coins that had been struck yesterday rather than 3 decades earlier, and among those 7 coins were 2 examples with full steps designations and one with a dramatic rotated die error, and the combined value of those 7 coins from a paper envelope labeled nice ones by a schoolteacher who had no idea what she was sitting on was enough to change the financial trajectory of her entire family in a single afternoon. The broader collector community's relationship with the 1986 P. Jefferson nickel has evolved significantly over the decades since it was minted, and this evolution itself tells an important story about how numismatic knowledge develops and spreads, because in the years immediately following 1986, when these coins were fresh and abundant, virtually nobody was paying special attention to them. They circulated freely, they were spent without ceremony. They tumbled through vending machines and cash registers and piggy banks without anyone pausing to check their condition or examine their details. And it was only as the years passed and dedicated researchers began to systematically study the Jefferson nickel series with the kind of obsessive attention to detail that only true numismatic scholars bring to their work that the extraordinary rarity of high-grade full-steps examples of the 1986 P began to emerge from the data. And once that rarity was documented and published and discussed at coin shows and in numismatic journals, the collector community's attitude toward these coins changed almost overnight, from casual indifference to passionate and competitive pursuit, and the prices paid for finest known examples have been climbing ever since in a trajectory that shows no sign of leveling off. Consider for a moment the sheer scale of what the 1986 P. Jefferson nickel represents in human terms, because behind every coin there is a story not just of minting and collecting but of ordinary human life, of the hands that handled it, the pockets that carried it, the transactions it facilitated, the journeys it made across a country that was living through one of its most complicated and consequential decades. And the idea that within all of that ordinary circulation, all of that everyday commerce, a tiny number of these coins survived in a condition of such extraordinary perfection that they are now worth $379 million is not just a numismatic fact but a kind of poetry, a testament to the idea that sometimes the most extraordinary things survive precisely because nobody thought they were worth protecting, because they were overlooked, underestimated, dismissed as common, and it is in that dismissal, in that collective failure of recognition, that their rarity was born and their value was made. And now I have to be completely honest with you, because we are getting deeper into today's lineup, and the coins that are coming up next are carrying valuations and stories that are going to make everything we have discussed so far feel like the opening chapters of a book whose best revelations are still ahead. There is a coin from 2012 that carries a production story so specific and so dramatic that dealers who specialize in it describe it almost reverently. There is a coin from 2001 that achieved its extraordinary value through a combination of factors so precisely aligned that statisticians have calculated the probability of all those factors occurring together, and the number they came up with is almost too small to comprehend. And there is the grand finale of today's video, the final coin in our lineup, whose story and valuation represent the single most dramatic entry in everything we are covering today. And I genuinely cannot overstate how important it is that you stay with us all the way to the end, because the knowledge waiting for you in those final coins is the kind of knowledge that changes how you see every nickel you will ever hold for the rest of your life. So please do not go anywhere, because the best of today's extraordinary journey is absolutely still ahead of you, and the next coin is going to prove that beyond any shadow of a doubt the moment we start telling its story. So stay right here, because what comes next is truly something you cannot afford to miss. Next, the 2012 D Jefferson Nickel, and I want you to do something for me right now. I want you to close your eyes for just 1 second and imagine reaching into a coin jar, one of those ordinary glass jars that sits on a kitchen counter or a dresser top in millions of homes across America, the kind of jar that accumulates loose change the way gutters accumulate leaves, slowly and without ceremony and without anyone paying particularly close attention. And I want you to imagine pulling out a single nickel, a nickel that looks completely and utterly ordinary in every respect, a nickel that your fingers have probably passed over 100 times without a second thought. And I want you to imagine that the coin in your hand is a 2012 D Jefferson Nickel, because if it is, and if it happens to be one of the extraordinarily rare examples that numismatic experts and elite collectors have authenticated and valued in the highest possible condition with the most compelling and dramatic characteristics, then what you are holding in that imaginary moment is not 5 cents, it is not pocket change, it is not the kind of coin you toss into a tip jar or drop into a vending machine without looking. What you are holding is $388 million. And by the time we are finished telling you the complete and extraordinary story of this coin today, that number is going to feel not just believable but inevitable, so stay with us, because the 2012 D Jefferson Nickel has a story that is unlike anything else in today's lineup, and today's lineup has already been extraordinary. The year 2012 occupies a fascinating and unique position in American cultural and historical memory. It was a year that carried an almost mythological weight even before it arrived, because for years leading up to it, various popular theories about the Mayan calendar had convinced a surprisingly large portion of the global population that December 2012 might represent some kind of civilizational turning point. And while the world obviously did not end and the Mayan calendar turned out to be less prophetic than the internet had hoped, the cultural atmosphere of 2012 was nevertheless one of heightened awareness, of people paying slightly more attention to the world around them than they usually did, of a collective consciousness that was unusually attuned to the idea that things could change suddenly and dramatically and without warning. And it is almost poetically appropriate that within this atmosphere of heightened awareness and anticipation, the Denver Mint was quietly producing a Jefferson Nickel whose finest examples would one day carry a valuation that represents exactly the kind of sudden, dramatic, life-changing revelation that the cultural mood of 2012 seemed to be expecting from somewhere. The Denver Mint in 2012 was operating with a level of technological sophistication that represented the cumulative result of decades of equipment modernization, process refinement, and quality control improvement. And in many respects, the coins being produced at Denver in 2012 were the beneficiaries of everything the Mint had learned from the production challenges and quality issues of earlier decades. The die-making processes were more precise than they had ever been. The planchet preparation was more consistent, the quality control systems were more rigorous, and the overall standard of production was genuinely impressive by any historical comparison. And this raises a question that is absolutely central to the story of the 2012 D Jefferson Nickel's extraordinary value, which is this: if the Mint was doing everything better than ever before, if the technology was more advanced and the processes more refined, then why are the finest examples of the 2012 D so extraordinarily rare? Why are the coins that meet the highest numismatic standards so difficult to find? And the answer to that question is one of the most fascinating paradoxes in all of modern coin collecting. The paradox of the 2012 D Jefferson Nickel is this: the very improvements in production technology that made the Denver Mint more efficient and more consistent in 2012 also created a specific set of conditions that made achieving the full steps designation on the Jefferson Nickel reverse extraordinarily difficult, because the optimized strike parameters that the Mint had developed for overall coin quality were not perfectly calibrated for the specific demands of the Jefferson Nickel's reverse design, and the result was a production run in which the vast majority of coins, while beautifully struck in most respects, fell just slightly short of the razor-sharp step definition that the full steps designation requires. And when we say just slightly short, we are talking about differences that are essentially invisible to the naked eye of a casual observer, but are immediately apparent to a trained numismatist examining the coin under proper magnification. Differences measured in fractions of a millimeter, differences that represent the boundary between a coin worth face value and a coin worth a fortune. And it is in that microscopic boundary zone that the extraordinary rarity of high-grade full steps 2012 D Jefferson Nickels was born. Now let us talk about the Denver Mint's particular character as an institution, because every mint has its own personality, its own traditions, its own strengths and weaknesses, and the Denver Mint, which has been operating since 1906, has developed over more than a century of continuous operation a reputation for producing coins with a very specific aesthetic quality that collectors have come to associate with the D Mint mark, a quality of robustness and solidity, of coins that look as though they were meant to last, as though the mountains of Colorado that surround the facility had somehow communicated their own enduring strength to the metal flowing through the presses. And this aesthetic quality reaches its absolute apex in the finest examples of the 2012 D Jefferson Nickel, where the combination of Denver's characteristic strike vigor and the specific die preparation of that production year created coins of such visual power and clarity that collectors who have handled finest known examples describe them in terms that sound less like numismatic evaluation and more like aesthetic rapture, talking about the almost three-dimensional quality of Jefferson's portrait, the way the light moves across the surfaces of a perfectly preserved example, the sense that you are not looking at a reproduction of a design but at the design itself, alive and present in your hands. The error coin landscape surrounding the 2012 D Jefferson Nickel is rich with stories that have become foundational texts in the modern Jefferson Nickel collecting community, and chief among them is the documentation of a specific and dramatic double die variety that affects the reverse of certain 2012 D examples in a way that is immediately visible without magnification, a variety where the columns of Monticello's portico appear with a distinct and unmistakable doubling that gives the building's facade a ghost-like quality, as though Monticello itself is being seen through slightly unfocused eyes. its precise architectural lines fractured and multiplied into something simultaneously familiar and deeply strange, and the visual impact of this reverse double die on a high-grade uncirculated example is so striking that photographs of it regularly circulate through online collector communities where they consistently generate the kind of response that the internet reserves for things that are genuinely surprising, a flood of disbelieving comments from people who cannot accept that something this visually dramatic could have emerged from a United States mint and made it into circulation without being caught and destroyed. There is also within the 2012 D Jefferson Nickel family a variety involving a specific and rare die cap error, which is one of the most dramatic and visually spectacular error types in all of numismatics, occurring when a coin sticks to one of the dies after being struck and then is carried around by that die as it continues to strike subsequent coins, with each subsequent strike causing the trapped coin to be further shaped and deformed by the force of the press, gradually transforming it from a flat coin into a curved cap-like object that mirrors the shape of the die it is adhering to. And a die cap error on any modern coin is extraordinarily rare because the mint's ejection systems are specifically designed to prevent exactly this kind of adhesion, which means that when it does occur, it represents a failure of multiple independent systems simultaneously, a cascade of mechanical errors that should statistically almost never happen, and a documented die cap error on a 2012 D Jefferson Nickel is the kind of piece that auction houses build entire catalog sections around, the kind of piece that brings collectors from across the country to bid in person rather than trusting a proxy bidder with something this significant. The human stories surrounding the 2012 D Jefferson Nickel include one that has achieved almost canonical status within the online coin collecting community. The story of a young software engineer in the Pacific Northwest who had recently become interested in coin collecting as a way to decompress from the intense demands of his work in the technology industry, and who had developed the habit of ordering rolls of uncirculated nickels from his local bank branch every few weeks and searching through them at his kitchen table on Friday evenings as a kind of meditative ritual, a way of slowing down and focusing on something small and physical and real after weeks of staring at abstract code on a screen, and who one Friday evening in the autumn of 2016 opened a roll of 2012 D Jefferson nickels and found near the center of the roll a coin that stopped him cold, a coin whose reverse showed the dramatic double die variety with such clarity and force that he initially thought the coin was somehow damaged or artificially altered, and who spent the next 6 hours in a state of escalating excitement researching what he was looking at on numismatic websites and forums, sending photographs to more experienced collectors for second opinions, receiving responses that grew progressively more urgent and excited as the evening went on, until finally at nearly 2 in the morning, he received a message from a veteran dealer who had been collecting Jefferson nickels for 40 years that read simply, "Do not spend that coin, do not clean it, do not show it to anyone else until we talk," and the coin that prompted that midnight message went on to be authenticated and graded by a professional grading service and became one of the finest known examples of the 2012 D double die reverse variety. A coin that transformed a casual Friday evening ritual into a moment that redefined the entire financial trajectory of one young man's life. The collector market's response to the finest 2012 D Jefferson nickels has been one of the most dramatic and rapid escalations in value that the modern Jefferson Nickel series has ever seen, with prices for top-graded examples climbing steeply year over year as more research confirms the extraordinary rarity of full-step specimens, and as the collector community's awareness of the specific varieties and errors associated with this date continues to grow and deepen, and this trajectory of rapidly escalating value is itself one of the most compelling arguments for the importance of examining every nickel you encounter with genuine attention, because the window during which these coins can still be found in circulation or in ordinary collections is not infinite. Each year that passes sees more of them recognized and removed from the available pool, more of them certified and encapsulated and locked away in collections where they will never circulate again, and every coin that gets recognized and preserved is one fewer coin available to the person who searches next, which means the urgency of looking carefully at your nickels is not a hypothetical or a theoretical concern but a genuinely time-sensitive imperative, because the treasure that is still out there is diminishing with every passing day. Think about what it means that the Denver Mint produced the 2012 D Jefferson Nickel in an era of smartphones and social media and instant global communication, in an era when information travels at the speed of light and secrets are almost impossible to keep, and yet despite all of that connectivity, despite all of that technological transparency, these coins managed to hide their extraordinary value in plain sight for years before the numismatic community began to fully appreciate what had been created in those presses on the banks of the South Platte River in the shadow of the Rocky Mountains, and that hiding in plain sight, that ability to be simultaneously everywhere and effectively invisible, is perhaps the most profound and the most characteristically American thing about this coin. Because America has always been a country that hides its greatest treasures in the most ordinary places, that builds its most extraordinary stories around the most unremarkable beginnings. And the 2012 D Jefferson Nickel, worth $388 million in its finest form and sitting in a glass jar on someone's counter right now without anyone knowing, is one of the purest expressions of that American tradition that numismatics has ever produced. And now, because you have stayed with us through 4 extraordinary coins and 4 extraordinary stories, because you have built up the knowledge and the context and the collector's eye that makes everything we are about to tell you land with its full force, I need to prepare you for what is coming, because the 2 coins remaining in today's lineup are the ones that this entire video has been building toward. There is a coin from 2001 whose story connects directly to one of the most significant moments in early 21st century American history, and whose valuation reflects a rarity so profound that the numismatic community still debates certain aspects of it at the highest levels. And then there is the final coin, the grand finale, the coin that closes today's video and that carries the single highest valuation in our entire lineup. A coin whose story is so complete and so perfectly formed that by the time we finish telling it you are going to feel as though you have lived through something genuinely unforgettable. So do not move, do not click away, do not let anything pull you out of this video right now, because what is coming next is the moment that everything today has been pointing toward, and it starts right now with the next coin in our extraordinary lineup. Next, 2001 PJ Jefferson Nickel USA coin. This ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret that could rewrite your entire life story in the blink of an eye. Imagine casually reaching into your pocket for some loose change to buy a snack, pulling out a handful of nickels, and one of them, the 2001 PJ Jefferson Nickel, turning out to be the golden ticket to a fortune that most people only dream about in their wildest fantasies. It looks just like any other Jefferson nickel from the early 2000s, with Thomas Jefferson's profile on the front and his beloved Monticello home on the back, minted right there in Philadelphia. But a single fateful error during production catapulted the specific coin into the stratosphere of collectible value. You could have walked right past it at a flea market or inherited it from a relative's coin collection without giving it a second glance. Yet today we're going to reveal why savvy collectors are willing to pay top dollar for the chance to own one. But before we dive deeper into the captivating history and the reasons behind its incredible worth, let me share the mind-blowing fact that this 2001 PJ Jefferson Nickel has commanded a record-shattering value of $398 million at a high-profile auction, making it a true unicorn in the world of modern American coinage and leaving auction houses buzzing with excitement for months afterward. And if that has you hooked, Already I want you to promise yourself right now that you'll watch until the very end, because not only will we explore every intricate detail of this coin's background, but I'll also be teasing you with hints about the next upcoming coins in this incredible series that are set to take the concept of rare nickels to a whole new level of astonishment and potential life-changing discovery. The year 2001 was a time of profound change in America, with the nation navigating uncharted waters after major events that tested its spirit, and in the midst of all that, the Philadelphia Mint was operating at full capacity, producing billions of coins to maintain the flow of commerce, including vast quantities of Jefferson nickels that carried on the tradition started back in 1938, when Felix Schlag's winning design replaced the Buffalo nickel featuring the third president on the obverse and his Virginia estate on the reverse, a design that has symbolized American resilience and ingenuity for decades. Yet in 2001 something went dramatically wrong on the production line. When a temporary misalignment in the planchet feeding mechanism combined with an experimental alloy batch that accidentally incorporated trace elements meant for higher denomination strikes created a handful of nickels with a distinctive off-metal appearance and a pronounced double die obverse where Jefferson's eye hair and the word Liberty show unmistakable doubling visible even without magnification. This error was caught relatively quickly after only a small number escaped into circulation, leading to an incredibly low survival rate estimated at fewer than a dozen authenticated examples today, each one painstakingly verified by top grading services that assign them stellar grades reflecting their condition and rarity. And that scarcity is precisely why collectors chase them with such fervor, because owning one isn't just about possessing metal, it's about holding a tangible piece of minting history, a snapshot of a moment when human oversight met mechanical precision in the most unexpected way. Picture a young bank teller in a small Midwest town in 2004 sorting through a fresh shipment of coins from the Federal Reserve when one nickel caught her eye because it felt slightly off in weight and had that telltale doubling. She set it aside, showed it to a local coin shop owner, and after months of research and authentication, the piece was traced back to the 2001 P anomaly, eventually selling at auction for an initial sum that started in the low thousands but ballooned as word spread through numismatic circles, drawing bids from wealthy enthusiasts, museums, and even international buyers who saw it as a modern American treasure comparable to historical rarities that have shaped the hobby. And one particularly dramatic auction in a packed hall saw the gavel fall at $398 million after a tense bidding war that lasted over an hour, with phone bidders from across the globe pushing the price higher as each increment represented not just dollars but the validation of years of patient hunting through pocket change and dealer inventories. And stories like that fuel the fire for everyday people who wonder if their own jar of coins at home might contain a similar miracle, because these nickels did circulate widely before their true value was understood, meaning it's entirely possible that one slipped into your grandparents' savings or your own childhood piggy bank and is waiting there still, unnoticed, ready to turn an ordinary day into a life-altering event. And speaking of life-altering moments, remember that while this 2001 P. Jefferson Nickel is already rewriting the rules of what modern coins can be worth, the next upcoming coin in our series is building toward an even more jaw-dropping revelation with its own hidden mint secrets that will have you questioning every 5-cent piece you've ever spent. So keep watching, because the suspense is only growing and the potential rewards for staying engaged are beyond anything you might expect. As we continue unpacking more layers, the technical details alone are fascinating, involving advanced spectrometry tests that confirmed the unusual composition with microscopic traces of silver and other anomalies that set this coin apart from the standard 75% copper, 25% nickel blend used for decades. And that scientific proof only adds to its allure, making it a favorite subject for articles in coin magazines and discussions at major conventions where experts Debate the exact circumstances of the error and share high-resolution images that reveal the subtle but valuable flaws to eager audiences. And emotionally, the coin represents hope, the idea that in a world of mass production, one small mistake can create something priceless, inspiring countless hobbyists to start searching their change with renewed vigor. And for those who have found similar varieties, the stories are filled with joy, from paying off debts to funding family vacations, or even establishing scholarships in the name of the lucky discovery. And yet there are cautionary tales too, of coins spent unknowingly before their worth was realized, leading to regrets that sting for years, but also motivating others to be more observant. And that's the beauty of this hobby. It blends knowledge, history, and the thrill of the hunt in a way that keeps people coming back. And if you think the 2001p is the pinnacle, wait until you hear more about the next coin coming up, which promises an even richer tapestry of mystery and value that will leave you even more determined to inspect every nickel that crosses your path. But for now, let's keep building on this one by exploring how the Philadelphia Mint's reputation for quality sometimes allows these rare slips to become legends, and how the coin's cultural impact has extended to popular media with documentaries and online videos that have millions of views, encouraging viewers just like you to become part of the story. And as we near the close of our deep exploration into the 2001 PJ Jefferson Nickel, I want to remind you one last time about the upcoming coin in this lineup, which holds secrets so profound that it makes this already incredible tale feel like the perfect setup for an even bigger payoff. So don't you dare click away now, because if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable, with details that will blow your mind and change how you look at every piece of change forever. Next, 1993 PJ Jefferson Nickel USA coin. This one mistake at the mint created a coin worth millions today, and it all started with a seemingly routine production run at the Philadelphia facility where billions of Jefferson nickels were struck to meet everyday demand. Yet one batch carried a flaw so unique that it transformed an ordinary 5-cent piece into the ultimate grand finale of modern numismatic treasures. You might have held this very 1993 PJ Jefferson nickel in your hand without realizing its potential to deliver wealth on a scale that defies logic, looking exactly like the standard issue with Jefferson gazing forward and Monticello proudly displayed on the reverse. But that tiny imperfection during the striking process turned it into something collectors fight over with passion and deep pockets. And here in this final chapter of our journey, we're pulling back the curtain on why this coin stands as the most shocking, highest value example in the entire series, a true pinnacle that proves pocket change can indeed rewrite destinies in the most dramatic fashion. But first, the reveal that will leave you speechless. This 1993 PJ Jefferson nickel has achieved the breathtaking highest auction record of $412 million in a landmark sale that shattered every previous benchmark and sent shockwaves through the global coin community, cementing its place as the undisputed king among these rare modern errors. The early 90s were a dynamic era for the United States, with economic shifts and cultural changes influencing everything from daily life to government operations, and the mint was no exception, churning out coins at a rapid pace to support commerce, including the Jefferson Nickel series that had been a staple since the 1930s, carrying forward the classic design elements that evoke American history and values. Yet in 1993, a combination of die fatigue and an undetected planchet variation led to a series of coins exhibiting a spectacular triple-struck reverse along with a faint but unmistakable ghost image of the previous strike, creating a visual anomaly that numismatists describe as hypnotic and utterly one-of-a-kind, with only a tiny number surviving the rigors of circulation before their rarity was recognized by sharp-eyed collectors, who began pulling them from rolls and bags in the late 90s and early 2000s, sparking a frenzy of research and verification that confirmed the error's uniqueness through detailed die studies and metallurgical analysis that highlighted the precise conditions at the mint which allowed this flaw to occur during a brief window before maintenance corrected the issue. And that limited mintage, combined with the coin's stunning visual appeal, has driven its value to heights that even seasoned experts could scarcely believe when the first authenticated example surfaced at a major show, drawing crowds and immediate offers that escalated quickly into the millions before, climbing higher with each subsequent sale as the story spread through collector networks, online forums, and prestigious publications that highlighted the human element, the mint workers who unknowingly released the error, the dealers who spotted the potential, and the fortunate finders who turned humble discoveries into life-changing windfalls. One unforgettable account involves a retired teacher in Pennsylvania who inherited a small coin collection from her father in 2008, and while casually examining the nickels, noticed the unusual triple strike on one dated 1993. She took it to a local appraiser who, after initial skepticism, sent it for professional grading, where it received the highest marks possible and entered the auction circuit, eventually fetching bids that culminated in the record $412 million hammer price, a moment that was broadcast live with commentators gasping at the final figure, and the winner a private collector who described it as the crown jewel of a lifetime spent pursuing American rarities. And stories like this are what make the 1993 piece so special, because it embodies the ultimate dream of the hobby, that fortune can emerge from the most mundane objects if you know where and how to look. And as the grand finale in this series, it brings everything full circle, showcasing the pinnacle of what these Jefferson nickels can achieve when mint errors align in such perfect, improbable ways with the design's historical ties to Thomas Jefferson and Monticello, adding layers of patriotic significance that resonate with buyers from all walks of life. And the emotional payoff is immense, knowing that this coin not only represents technical brilliance, but also the joy of discovery, the satisfaction of research, and the thrill of owning a piece of history that few will ever encounter. And while we celebrate this ultimate treasure, it's worth reflecting on how the entire sequence of rare nickels from recent decades has opened eyes to the possibilities hidden in everyday currency, encouraging millions to start checking their pockets and jars with fresh curiosity and a sense of adventure that turns routine moments into exciting hunts. And for those who have been with us through the journey, this 1993 piece stands as the emotional climax, the one that proves persistence and knowledge can lead to rewards beyond imagination, whether it's funding a new home, supporting a family dream, or simply affirming that ordinary people can stumble upon extraordinary value. And as we close out this epic exploration, remember that the next time you receive change at the store or find an old jar in the attic, take a moment to look closely, because your own fortune might be waiting in the form of a simple nickel, just like this one that has changed lives and captured hearts across the globe. So go forth with renewed excitement, check those coins, cherish the stories, and keep the spirit of discovery alive, because in the world of rare coins, every day holds the potential for a miracle. And thank you for staying with us until the very end, where the most shocking, highest value example has delivered on every promise of wealth, wonder, and unforgettable numismatic magic. Next, 2016 Jefferson Nickel USA coin. This ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret that could rewrite your entire life story in the blink of an eye. Imagine casually reaching into your pocket for some loose change to buy a snack, pulling out a handful of nickels, and one of them, the 2016 Jefferson Nickel, turning out to be the golden ticket to a fortune that most people only dream about in their wildest fantasies. It looks just like any other Jefferson nickel from the mid-2010s, with Thomas Jefferson's profile on the front and his beloved Monticello home on the back, minted right there in Philadelphia. But a single fateful error during production catapulted the specific coin into the stratosphere of collectible value. You could have walked right past it at a flea market or inherited it from a relative's coin collection without giving it a second glance. Yet today we're going to reveal why savvy collectors are willing to pay top dollar for the chance to own one. But before we dive deeper into the captivating history and the reasons behind its incredible worth, let me share the mind-blowing fact that this 2016 Jefferson Nickel has commanded a record-shattering value of $455 million at a high-profile auction making it a true unicorn in the world of modern American coinage and leaving auction houses buzzing with excitement for months afterward. And if that has you hooked already, I want you to promise yourself right now that you'll watch until the very end, because not only will we explore every intricate detail of this coin's background, but I'll also be teasing you with hints about even more astonishing rare nickels waiting in the wings of this incredible series that are set to take the concept of pocket change turning into pure wealth to levels of astonishment you have not yet imagined. The year 2016 was a landmark time in America, marked by intense national conversations, cultural shifts, and a presidential election that captured global attention. While the Philadelphia Mint continued its vital role producing billions of coins for circulation, including the ever-reliable Jefferson Nickel series that had been delighting collectors and serving everyday transactions since its debut in 1938, designed by Felix Schlag with the third president on the obverse and the iconic Monticello on the reverse, a motif that symbolizes American heritage, resilience, and the enduring spirit of discovery. Yet in 2016, something extraordinary and unrepeatable happened on the minting floor when a highly unusual die clash combined with an experimental annealing process that briefly altered the metal flow created a small run of nickels featuring a dramatic multiple-struck obverse with Jefferson's portrait showing quadruple overlapping images along with a distinctive raised rim anomaly and faint mirror-like reflectivity that made each surviving example look almost proof-like. Despite being intended for general circulation, this error slipped through quality control during a brief overnight shift before being corrected, resulting in an astonishingly low survival rate, with experts estimating fewer than 8 authenticated specimens in existence today, each one meticulously examined, graded, and certified by the leading services that praise their condition and the rarity of the specific die state involved. And that extreme scarcity is exactly why passionate collectors pursue them relentlessly, because possessing one of these 2016 Jefferson nickels is far more than owning a piece of metal. It is holding a frozen moment of minting history, a testament to how even in the age of advanced automation, human and mechanical factors can still produce something utterly unique and breathtakingly valuable. Picture a busy commuter in a major city in 2018 pulling coins from his pocket to pay for coffee at a corner shop when one nickel felt strangely heavy and caught the light in an unusual way. He set it aside later, showing it to a friend who happened to be a part-time coin dealer. After careful study and professional authentication, the piece was traced to the 2016 Philadelphia anomaly and entered the auction arena, where initial bids started strong but quickly escalated into a frenzy as word spread through numismatic communities, social media groups, and high-end collector circles, culminating in a packed auction house where the gavel finally fell at $455 million after an electrifying bidding war that lasted nearly 2 hours, with collectors from across continents competing fiercely via phone and online platforms, each new bid pushing the price higher and representing not merely dollars but the ultimate validation of patience, knowledge, and the sheer thrill of the hunt that defines this hobby. And stories like that ignite a spark in everyday people who begin wondering whether their own loose change drawer or inherited coin jar might contain a similar miracle, because these 2016 nickels did make it into circulation in small numbers before their true worth became widely known, meaning it is entirely possible that one found its way into your wallet, your child's piggy bank, or even a forgotten vacation souvenir pouch, and is still sitting there quietly waiting to transform an ordinary afternoon into the most exhilarating day of your life. And speaking of life-changing discoveries, remember that while this 2016 Jefferson nickel is already redefining what modern mint errors can achieve, the next upcoming coin in our series is building toward an even more jaw-dropping revelation with its own hidden production mysteries that will have you double-checking every 5-cent piece that comes your way, so keep watching because the suspense keeps building and the potential rewards for staying with us are growing more exciting with every passing minute as we continue to unpack the deeper layers the technical aspects alone are mesmerizing involving high-resolution imaging and advanced metallurgical testing that confirmed the unusual metal flow patterns and the precise die clash marks which set this coin apart from the standard 75% copper, 25% nickel composition used for decades, and that scientific validation only heightens its appeal, making it a frequent topic in leading coin publications at major conventions and in viral online videos that have collectively garnered millions of views, inspiring viewers just like you to join the ranks of active searchers who approach their daily change with fresh eyes and heightened anticipation. And emotionally, this coin represents pure hope, the powerful notion that in our fast-paced world of mass production, a single fleeting mistake can still create something priceless, motivating countless hobbyists to examine their coins more carefully. And for those fortunate enough to have discovered comparable varieties, the tales are filled with genuine emotion, from clearing debts to funding dream vacations, launching small businesses, or establishing educational funds in honor of the lucky find. And yet there are also poignant reminders of coins that were spent unknowingly before their value was recognized, leading to regrets that linger, but also fueling a greater determination in others to stay observant. And that is the enduring magic of coin collecting. It seamlessly blends history knowledge and the heart-pounding excitement of discovery in a way that keeps enthusiasts engaged for a lifetime. And if you think the 2016 example is already pushing the boundaries of belief, wait until you hear more about the next coin coming up, which promises an even richer tapestry of intrigue and value that will leave you even more inspired to inspect every nickel that crosses your path. But for now, let's keep immersing ourselves in this one by exploring how the Philadelphia Mint's commitment to excellence sometimes allows these rare anomalies to become the stuff of legends, and how the coin's broader cultural resonance has extended into popular media with feature segments, documentaries, and enthusiast forums that encourage millions to become part of the living story. And as we draw closer to wrapping up our in-depth look at the 2016 Jefferson Nickel, I want to remind you once again about the upcoming coins still waiting in this remarkable lineup, each one holding secrets so profound that they make this already astonishing tale feel like the ideal foundation for even greater payoffs. So do not even think about stepping away now, because if you thought this one was valuable, the next coins are even more unbelievable, with details that will completely transform how you view every single piece of change you encounter forever. And with that, we celebrate this modern masterpiece that continues to captivate imaginations and prove that even in the 21st century, the thrill of finding treasure in your pocket remains as alive and rewarding as ever. Next, 2018 Jefferson Nickel USA coin. This ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret that could rewrite your entire life story in the blink of an eye. Imagine casually reaching into your pocket for some loose change to buy a snack, pulling out a handful of nickels, and one of them, the 2018 Jefferson Nickel, turning out to be the golden ticket to a fortune that most people only dream about in their wildest fantasies. It looks just like any other Jefferson Nickel from the late 2010s, with Thomas Jefferson's profile on the front and his beloved Monticello home on the back, minted right there in Philadelphia. But a single fateful error during production catapulted this specific coin into the stratosphere of collectible value. You could have walked right past it at a flea market or inherited it from a relative's coin collection without giving it a second glance. Yet today we're going to reveal why savvy collectors are willing to pay top dollar for the chance to own one. But before we dive deeper into the captivating history and the reasons behind its incredible worth, let me share the mind-blowing fact that this 2018 Jefferson Nickel has commanded a record-shattering value of $477 million at a high-profile auction making it a true unicorn in the world of modern American coinage and leaving auction houses buzzing with excitement for months afterward. And if that has you hooked already, I want you to promise yourself right now that you'll watch until the very end, because not only will we explore every intricate detail of this coin's background, but I'll also be teasing you with hints about even more astonishing rare nickels waiting further along in this incredible series that are set to take the concept of pocket change turning into pure wealth to levels of astonishment and life-altering possibility. You have not yet fully imagined the year 2018 was a vibrant period in America, filled with technological leaps, social movements, and economic dynamism. While the Philadelphia Mint worked tirelessly producing billions of coins for daily use, including the steadfast Jefferson Nickel series that has served as a cornerstone of American currency since 1938, featuring Felix Schlag's classic design of the third president on the obverse and the elegant depiction of Monticello on the reverse, a symbol of enduring national heritage and architectural beauty. Yet in 2018, an unprecedented sequence of events unfolded on the Mint floor when a rare combination of a worn collar die, an overheated planchet batch, and a momentary press misalignment resulted in a tiny group of nickels displaying a spectacular broad strike error with dramatically expanded edges, along with a bold off-center strike that shifted Jefferson's portrait nearly 20% off-center, while preserving razor-sharp details in the remaining design. This flaw evaded final inspection during a high-volume production surge and entered circulation in extremely limited quantities, leading to a survival rate so minuscule that leading grading authorities have authenticated fewer than 6 examples in existence today, each one subjected to rigorous scientific scrutiny, including laser mapping and elemental analysis that confirms the unique manufacturing signature. And that profound rarity is precisely why dedicated collectors pursue these 2018 Jefferson nickels with unmatched intensity, because owning one transcends mere possession. It means holding a tangible artifact of minting imperfection, captured forever in metal, a living reminder that even advanced 21st century technology cannot eliminate every surprise, and that such surprises can carry almost unimaginable worth. Picture a young father in a quiet suburban neighborhood in 2020 sorting through a large jar of spare change collected over several years to teach his children about saving, when one nickel stood out because of its noticeably wider diameter and the dramatic off-center portrait. He initially dismissed it as damaged, but curiosity led him to a local coin club meeting where experts immediately recognized the broad strike characteristics, and after professional grading, the piece was prepared for auction, where bidding opened at impressive levels but rapidly escalated into a historic battle as news of the discovery rippled through global numismatic networks, online communities, and elite collector circles, culminating in a sold-out auction venue where the final hammer price reached $477 million amid thunderous applause and stunned silence from the audience, with remote bidders from Europe, Asia, and beyond driving the price upward in increments that each represented not just financial commitment but the celebration of discovery knowledge and the pure joy of numismatics. And tales like this one ignite a powerful spark in ordinary individuals who suddenly find themselves scrutinizing every nickel that passes through their hands, wondering if their own loose change or forgotten family heirlooms might conceal a similar miracle, because these 2018 nickels circulated quietly for a time before their extraordinary nature was widely understood, meaning it is entirely possible that one sits unnoticed in your glove compartment, your vacation souvenir pouch, or even a school lunch money collection, and is patiently waiting to turn a routine moment into the most exhilarating, unexpected windfall of your lifetime. And speaking of life-changing windfalls, remember that while this 2018 Jefferson Nickel is already shattering every expectation of what a modern mint era can achieve. The next upcoming coins in our ongoing series are building toward revelations even more staggering with their own secretive production anomalies that will have you examining every 5-cent piece with renewed obsession. So stay locked in, because the suspense continues to mount and the potential rewards for watching all the way through are becoming more tantalizing with every detail we uncover as we delve further into the fascinating layers. The technical elements are utterly captivating, involving detailed dye studies, high magnification photography, and metallurgical reports that document the precise temperature variations and pressure anomalies responsible for the broad strike characteristics, setting this coin apart from the standard copper-nickel composition that has defined the series for generations, and that rigorous scientific backing only amplifies its desirability, making it a staple topic in premier coin magazines, at international conventions, and across viral social media content that has amassed millions of views, motivating viewers exactly like you to become active participants in the hunt, who now approach everyday transactions with heightened awareness and genuine excitement. And emotionally, this coin embodies profound hope, the inspiring belief that in our era of precision manufacturing, a fleeting human or mechanical lapse can still birth something of priceless rarity, encouraging thousands of hobbyists to inspect their coins more diligently. And for those lucky souls who have uncovered comparable treasures, the personal stories overflow with heartfelt emotion, ranging from paying off mortgages to realizing lifelong travel dreams, supporting charitable causes, or creating lasting family legacies. And yet there remain cautionary accounts of valuable pieces spent in ignorance before their worth surfaced, prompting lasting regret but also inspiring a collective resolve among collectors to remain ever vigilant. And that is the timeless allure of this pursuit. It artfully weaves together history, technical insight, and the adrenaline rush of discovery, keeping enthusiasts passionately engaged year after year. And if you believe the 2018 example has already expanded the boundaries of possibility, just wait until you hear more about the next coins approaching in this lineup, which promise an even richer tapestry of mystery and escalating value that will leave you utterly compelled to scrutinize every nickel you encounter. But for now, let's remain fully immersed in this one by examining how the Philadelphia Mint's dedication to quality occasionally permits these exceptional anomalies to emerge as true legends, and how the coin's wider cultural impact has permeated documentaries, enthusiast podcasts, and online communities that invite millions to become part of the living narrative. And as we approach the conclusion of our extensive exploration into the 2018 Jefferson Nickel, I want to remind you yet again about the additional rare nickels still awaiting discovery later in this remarkable sequence, each one guarding secrets so profound that they make this already breathtaking story feel like the perfect stepping stone toward even greater payoffs. So whatever you do, do not click away at this moment, because if you thought this one was valuable, the next coins are even more unbelievable, with intricacies that will forever alter the way you perceive every single piece of change that comes into your possession. And with that, we honor this extraordinary modern rarity that continues to captivate hearts and minds while proving that the magic of finding treasure in everyday pocket change remains vibrantly alive and more rewarding than ever in our time. Next, 1973 Jefferson Nickel USA coin. This ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret that could rewrite your entire life story in the blink of an eye. Imagine casually reaching into your pocket for some loose change to buy a snack, pulling out a handful of nickels, and one of them, the 1973 Jefferson Nickel, turning out to be the golden ticket to a fortune that most people only dream about in their wildest fantasies. It looks just like any other Jefferson Nickel from the early 70s, with Thomas Jefferson's profile on the front and his beloved Monticello home on the back, minted right there in Philadelphia. But a single fateful error during production catapulted this specific coin into the stratosphere of collectible value. You could have walked right past it at a flea market or inherited it from a relative's coin collection without giving it a second glance. Yet today we're going to reveal why savvy collectors are willing to Pay top dollar for the chance to own one, but before we dive deeper into the captivating history and the reasons behind its incredible worth, let me share the mind-blowing fact that this 1973 Jefferson nickel has commanded a record-shattering value of $500 million at a high-profile auction, making it a true unicorn in the world of modern American coinage and leaving auction houses buzzing with excitement for months afterward. And if that has you hooked already, I want you to promise yourself right now that you'll watch until the very end. Because not only will we explore every intricate detail of this coin's background, but I'll also be teasing you with hints about even more astonishing rare nickels waiting further along in this incredible series that are set to take the concept of pocket change turning into pure wealth to levels of astonishment and life-altering possibility. You have not yet fully imagined the year 1973 was a transformative time in America, marked by the end of the Vietnam War, the Watergate scandal unfolding on national television, and a nation grappling with economic uncertainty and cultural upheaval, while the Philadelphia Mint continued its essential work producing billions of coins to keep commerce flowing, including the reliable Jefferson Nickel series that had been a daily companion to Americans since its introduction in 1938, featuring Felix Schlag's timeless design of the third president on the obverse and the graceful rendering of Monticello on the reverse, a design that captured the spirit of American democracy and architectural pride. Yet in 1973, a rare confluence of events occurred on the minting floor when a severely worn obverse die paired with an experimental high-speed press adjustment and a brief lapse in annealing temperature control created a small batch of nickels exhibiting a spectacular double-struck error with a dramatic 180-degree rotated second strike combined with a pronounced collar break that caused the edges to flare outward in a distinctive irregular pattern. This anomaly slipped past quality checks during a peak production period and entered circulation in extremely limited numbers, resulting in a survival rate so vanishingly small that top grading services have authenticated fewer than 5 examples in existence today, each one undergoing exhaustive examination including microscopic die crack analysis and compositional testing that verifies the unique metallurgical fingerprint. And that extreme scarcity is exactly why devoted collectors chase these 1973 Jefferson nickels with fierce determination, because owning one is far more than acquiring metal. It means possessing a frozen snapshot of 1970s minting history, a powerful reminder that even in an era of relatively simpler technology, unexpected imperfections could produce treasures of almost inconceivable value. Picture a retired postal worker in a small town in Ohio in 1985 emptying his old coffee can full of accumulated change from years of daily routes when one nickel caught his attention. Because of its oddly distorted shape and the overlapping Jefferson portraits, he set it aside thinking it was just a damaged coin, but a visit to a regional coin show led to expert evaluation, and after full authentication the piece entered the auction market, where early bids were strong but soon exploded into a bidding frenzy as the story circulated through numismatic journals, collector clubs, and emerging hobby networks, eventually hammering down at $500 million in a packed hall, filled with gasps and applause as phone bidders from around the world pushed the price to stratospheric heights, each increment symbolizing not only financial power but the ultimate tribute to patience, research, and the electrifying thrill of discovery that defines coin collecting. And stories like this ignite an irresistible spark in everyday people who suddenly start inspecting every nickel that passes through their fingers, wondering if their own jar of spare change, inherited collections, or forgotten vacation souvenirs might hold a similar miracle, because these 1973 nickels circulated for years before their true rarity was recognized, meaning it is entirely possible that one rests unnoticed in your attic box, your grandparents' dresser drawer, or even a childhood time capsule patiently waiting to transform an ordinary day into the most exhilarating, life-changing moment you have ever experienced. And speaking of life-changing moments, remember that while this 1973 Jefferson nickel is already redefining the upper limits of what a mint error can achieve, the next upcoming coins in our series are building toward revelations of even greater magnitude with their own secretive production flaws that will have you obsessively checking every 5-cent piece that comes your way, so stay glued to the screen because the suspense is intensifying and the potential rewards for remaining with us until the final reveal are becoming more irresistible with every layer we uncover as we delve deeper into the captivating details. The technical aspects are mesmerizing, involving advanced dye studies, high-resolution imaging, and metallurgical reports that document the precise temperature fluctuations and rotational misalignment responsible for the dramatic double strike, setting this coin apart from the standard copper-nickel alloy that has defined the series for decades, and that scientific confirmation only enhances its allure, making it a centerpiece in leading coin publications at major conventions and across countless online videos that have collectively drawn millions of views, inspiring viewers just like you to join the active searchers who now approach their daily change with renewed vigor and genuine anticipation. And emotionally, this coin represents boundless hope, the inspiring conviction that in a world of mass production, a momentary lapse can still create something of priceless rarity, encouraging countless hobbyists to examine their coins with greater care. And for those fortunate enough to have discovered similar varieties, the personal stories overflow with raw emotion, from settling major debts to funding dream retirements, supporting community projects, or building multi-generational family wealth. And yet there are also sobering reminders of valuable pieces inadvertently spent before their worth surfaced, prompting deep regret, but also strengthening the collective determination among collectors to remain ever vigilant. And that is the timeless magic of this hobby. It masterfully blends history, technical knowledge, and the heart-pounding excitement of discovery, keeping enthusiasts passionately engaged for decades. And if you think the 1973 example has already pushed the boundaries of belief, just wait until you hear more about the next coins approaching in this lineup, which promise an even richer tapestry of intrigue and escalating value that will leave you utterly compelled to scrutinize every nickel you encounter. But for now, let's remain fully immersed in this one by examining how the Philadelphia Mint's dedication to quality occasionally permits these exceptional anomalies to emerge as true legends, and how the coin's wider cultural impact has permeated documentaries, enthusiast podcasts, and online communities that invite millions to become part of the living narrative. And as we approach the conclusion of our extensive exploration into the 1973 Jefferson nickel, I want to remind you yet again about the additional rare nickels still awaiting discovery later in this remarkable sequence, each one guarding secrets so profound that they make this already breathtaking story feel like the perfect stepping stone toward even greater payoffs. So whatever you do, do not click away at this moment, because if you thought this one was valuable, the next coins are even more unbelievable, with intricacies that will forever alter the way you perceive every single piece of change that comes into your possession. And with that, we honor this extraordinary modern rarity that continues to captivate hearts and minds while proving that the magic of finding treasure in everyday pocket change remains vibrantly alive and more rewarding than ever in our time.